What the fuck? Hasan Piker will call you a homophobic. Dude, Austin sent this to me earlier. I was wondering where the fuck this came from. Hasan Piker will call you a homophobic slur on FaceTime. Man, who the fuck's idea was this? I'm going to retweet it. Dazed and Confused had some fucked up high school pedophile screen time. Yeah, I remember. Azan, question mark. Hassan the Hun, you didn't get anything for my birthday. Can someone buy me this? I'm not buying him this. More scabs. Very interesting. Which celebs like Drew Barrymore's scabbing Insta post? Jennifer Garner. Jennifer Aniston. Lily J. Collins. Cara Delevingne. Kristen Annie Bell. Kristen Bell has unliked it, lol. To be fair, couldn't it be social media managers? No. They got the Drew Barrymore's wiki. Whoever got the Drew's Wikipedia, you're a hero. Drew Blythe Barrymore is a strike-breaking scab rat.
Everything working people have ever won, we've won together. Today, America's auto workers are in the fight of our lives. The fight for a decent standard of living. The fight for wages that grow with inflation. The fight to retire with dignity. The fight to protect our communities against plant closures. The fight for better work-life balance so we can see our children grow up and our parents grow old. Winning these demands will take all of us fighting together. It will take a return to our roots. Collective action gave birth to our great union. After years of facing down company thugs, spies, and anti-union laws that favored big business, the auto workers in Flint, Michigan took decisive action. In 1937, they occupied General Motors plants and set off an organizing firestorm in our country. After a few tense months, GM auto workers emerged victorious. They had won their union and a contract. The creativity, discipline, and defiant spirit of auto workers was contagious. The sit-down strike sparked a strike wave that quickly spread across the entire working class, everywhere from auto plants to department stores. Nearly 400,000 workers across the U.S. participated in sit-down strikes in 1937, giving birth to a new industrial labor movement. We are once again returning to our roots and reclaiming our tradition of holding the line for working people against unchecked corporate power. That is why we are launching a new kind of strike against Ford, GM, and Stellantis. This is our generation's answer to the sit-down strike of the 1930s. We're calling it the stand-up strike. This is a strike that starts small and builds over time as more and more of us stand up and join the fight. This is a strike that keeps the companies guessing as to where and when the next local will walk out. And just as importantly, we are striking the big three, all three. We told them September 14th is a deadline, and we meant it. The big three have made $250 billion over the last 10 years. They made $21 billion in profits in the first half of this year alone. We will not stand by as corporate executives and the rich continue to make extraordinary profits while the rest of us continue to get left further and further behind. And I want to be clear, our goal is not to strike. Our goal is to bargain a fair contract. But if we have to strike to win economic and social justice, then and we will shut down the big three. We are not afraid to fight for what we deserve. We will stand up for ourselves. We will stand up for our families. We will stand up for our communities. So UAW family, be ready.
I'm so fucking riled up.
If your local is called to stand up, I know you'll meet the moment, just like the generations that came before us did. While some of us are on the picket line, the rest of us will keep organizing our coworkers and our communities. Show management that you are prepared to join the stand-up strike. This is our generation's defining moment. Let's stand up for ourselves and the working class. Let's stand up for future generations. Let's stand up for economic and social justice. Let's stand up and once again make history together.
God damn. Gotta fucking give a shout out to friend of the show, Jonah Furman, by the way, who is, working on the communication side at UAW, used to be at Labor Notes and worked with Bernie Sanders and the Teamsters as well. He's done so well, in my opinion. I mean, him and everyone on that team, like, they're doing a fucking great job. A good working class vocabulary is incredibly important, as well as messaging is very good and effective. Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, the big three are 4GM and Stellantis. Won't this just harm the workers and their unions? Won't the big auto corporations just take their business overseas like they have already been? Not trying to be sarcastic, genuinely confused as to how this won't just encourage the big orgs to move overseas. Just for the record, I support the workers. Yeah, great question. First of all, they have done that already. Secondly, they can't. They literally can't. Do you know how fucking insanely expensive that is? Like, it is insanely, unmanageably expensive. And not only that, but also, you have to remember, the UAW, along with the Teamsters, are two of the most powerful unions in North America, okay? The UAW has obviously lost a lot of its power throughout its history, but it's an incredibly powerful union, which means, like, hundreds of thousands of people losing their fucking jobs. Okay? One, the import taxes are insane on cars. That's number one. And it would get significantly worse as well. Like, it would be nutty for these American auto manufacturers to, like, move overseas. It just would not happen. What do you think of laws that force companies to have at least a few factories in their home nation? I like it. I like protective anti-neoliberal measures. People will get mad at me for saying this, but I think it's good. And I think it's very selfish of especially European quote-unquote social democrats who love neoliberalism somehow. I don't know why, but they always end up being like lame-ass liberals who fucking sit there and act like Germany isn't the industrial powerhouse it is, the engine that is basically at the heart of the European Union, without these kinds of protective measures implemented. Think of all the big vehicles that Americans buy, so expensive to build overseas and ship back, especially since all those big vehicles are only purchased in NA in the first place. Why would you make an F-150 in China? Stock Dems loving neoliberalism, that's so shocking, I almost had a heart attack. It's just like a lot of people who consider themselves social democrat love liberal agendas, love market socialism, they call it. Or not, they're not even socialist if they're Soc Dems in Europe. But here's a projection of how much the market would lose. Yeah, even a brief UAW strike scene causing billions in U.S. economic damage. A 10-day work stoppage would reduce the U.S. GDP by $5.6 billion. A strike would push Michigan into a recession, says Anderson. Now, one thing that I need to explain to you is that obviously this is anti-union language for the most part, okay? They are not covering this from the aspect of like how much the bosses are causing the economy to collapse, and usually how much the unions are causing the economy to collapse. The real answer here is This can be avoided with one simple trick, okay? Bosses hate this. One simple trick. It's called concessions, okay? It's called negotiating in good faith, which, by the way, it has happened already. UAW says automakers have conceded on key worker demands. They're not offering raises as high as 20%, cost of living increases, faster progressions to top wages, and higher starting wages for temps. Until last week, GM and Stellantis hadn't even made economic counteroffers. In a call with members, UAW Sean Fain said there's still a ways to go in negotiations, but one thing is clear. When workers build power, companies are forced to listen. Fain shared a breakdown of where the proposals from each of the big three automakers stand. UAW also confirmed they will be doing targeted strikes against all three car makers if no tentative agreements are in place by 11:59 p.m. Thursday deadline. Targeted strikes are at key facilities, could allow the union to halt auto production while preserving its strike fund. Interesting, of course, that, in all of this conversation, what gets lost in the sauce is the $5 billion in profits that these fucking companies have raked in. Profits. Again, profits. Not fucking gross revenue. I'm talking profits, okay? Which means that is directly lining up the pockets of shareholders, okay? Pure profit, okay? Moolah. Greenbacks, okay? I'm talking not monopoly money. This is some serious shit, okay? Where does that go? Where does that pure extracted labor value go? Directly into the pockets of shareholders, buybacks, stock buybacks, and of course, CEO compensation, executive level compensation. It is fucking unimaginable that these guys are making so much goddamn money, and they're making money hand over fist, and the people that don't even generate that value are the ones who are pocketing it. Okay? Come the fuck on, you know?
The only time that I got off was
Not sure if you covered Fain on Tapper. I did. And for GM, they fired a bunch of people this year, made people take a separation program, shut down Easy Innovation Center to save money for those profit margins. Yeah. So, that's the situation. The Biden administration is on edge about the strike. The auto industry accounts for about 3% of U.S. GDP, but plays a much bigger role in the Great Lakes economies, and Democrats will rely winning Michigan and Wisconsin to retain the White House. It's like, yeah, guess what? Then apply pressure to the bosses. As I've said time and time again, okay? In a contract negotiation, when the threat of a work stoppage is looming, okay? Or when a contract negotiation falls apart and a work stoppage starts, okay? One side has nearly all the power to make decisions as a pretty much singular person. Like the CEO can literally make a decision by himself almost, okay? Whereas the other side does not have that power. Unions do not have the power to meet the lackluster concessions that the bosses offer them. You know what? You want to know why? You want to know why they can't do that? Because there is a democratic process after the negotiations committee is done with the bargaining side on the union side, and they have to take the contract back to their fucking workers, back to the rank and file who has to vote on it. That process is much more democratic, given that the company structure, the corporate structure is inherently authoritarian. The board can make unified decisions. It's like fucking 6 people, 10 people, however many people sitting on a board can get together in a fucking room and say, yeah, let's give them these demands. If you want to stop the hurt, if you want to stop the bleeding, if you want to stop the pain before it even starts, okay, look to the executives. They are the ones who are continuing the hurt. Do you get it? You understand? The media never covers it like this, though. It is so surprising that you never hear from any mainstream media outlets about how fucking selfish and lazy these piece of shit crooks in suits are sitting in fucking corporate boardrooms. It's always the union is selfish. It's always the union is too entitled. It's always the working class is wrong for making these demands. I wonder why. There's two sides to a fucking contract negotiation, and one side pretty much has all the fucking power. The other side is exercising the crumb of power that they have. Nobody wants a work stoppage. Nobody wants a strike. Nobody wants it. The workers don't want it. The bosses don't want it. The entire economy that revolves around these massive manufacturing plants don't want it. Nobody wants it. But only one side is allowing it to happen. And that side is not the fucking union, okay? Union leadership are voted in a democratic process, and they have a democratic responsibility. They have the responsibility of bringing the best possible contract that will get ratified by their fucking rank and file. The board does not have a similar mechanism. They have a fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders, but they can quite easily just say, well, there was nothing we could have done about it. They asked us for all this shit, and they were going to do a work stoppage. Look, $5 billion in loss of GDP. That's pretty damning. It's pretty severe. We had to cave. We had to cave to their fucking demands. Okay? There's still a voting process, but the board is explicitly plutocratic because they vote based on money rather than people. More shares equals more votes for board seats, whereas unions vote are per person. Exactly. So weird. These losers get paid so much yet are useless apart from a tiny area of expertise. Most of these fucks can't print to PDF. I deal with them all day being in IT. They're so entitled to. Yeah. One thing I noticed in the media during the strike season over here in Finland, what does the union mean? Is it some nefarious organization attempting to ruin the economy? No, it's the workers, the regular people who are actually making the economy run. Yeah. American politicians work for the corporations, not the other way around. Absolutely. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News all portrayed as an equal negotiation, an equal fight. It never was. The workers are fighting, one arm behind their back, shackled, and the other arm is dislocated. Fuck them for lying to me, you, to your fellow worker, your friend. One side always has the power and always plays dirty. Yes, it's actually not bad that they are covering it as an equal fight. If you look at other countries that have way more recent anti-union propaganda that they've cut, and they've like made their bones in fucking anti-union, anti-labor sentiment, like the UK, you see way more vicious commentary. Our media in the United States of America, partially due to the reality that labor unions are oftentimes very powerless, partially due to the fact that capital has won that battle many times over, are not as experienced in cutting anti-union propaganda. It's something that I've noticed here. I talked to labor reporters about stuff like this. I do feel like I do feel as though that is like one weird avenue, because like unions are perceived as less of a threat, that they now have the opportunity to actually get some decent marketing once again. I'll tell you this much. Like in comparison to UK media, our coverage of labor unions is significantly more positive. Straight up. What do you think was the main motivation behind Ben & Jerry's voluntarily recognizing the Scoopers union? Do you think that they thought it would be good PR, or do you think there's some genuine intention behind it? What do you mean? They're fucking, some people could just like be good bosses. You know what I mean? Like, That's it. I'll tell you this much. A lot of legacy media barely have labor reporters, okay? A lot of legacy media barely have labor reporters. I have labor reporters on the stream all the fucking time. I've literally hosted labor reporters like Alex Press in my house for an extended period of time as they are covering union activity, okay? And most of them get contracted by these legacy publishers, but they write for otherwise Jacobin full-time. You know what I mean? Like outside of Labor Notes, Jacobin, and a few specific outlets, there are brilliant labor reporters out there, obviously, okay? But the reality is that, like, we don't necessarily have, like, full-time, like, labor beat writers. You know what I mean? People will get mad at me and they'll say, fuck you, Hasan, I'm a labor journalist. I'm on the labor beat for the New York Times. But, like, I feel like the size of the labor beat should be significantly larger in a country that has, like, union power, more union activity happening. And, you know, the fact that we don't is an indication of, like, how little the media even covers union action in general. And if you look at union labor participation in the economy, you will understand why. We are still barely at 10%. Okay? With all this momentum happening left and right, maybe that number will change. And it's great, and I do feel positive about the future. And I do think that it's, like, marginally better. But of course, still a long way to go on that front. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer told Bloomberg News in an interview that last week that she's concerned about where the negotiations are headed. She's talking to leaders of each company in the union to try and head off a strike, but added that it is unclear what more she and her state can do. Of the $5.6 billion in economic impact, lost worker pay would come to $859 million. Lost automaker earnings would be $989 million, Anderson said. The rest would come from layoffs and lost business at parts makers and other industries that can rely on three automakers. Spain has demanded a defined benefit pension and retiree health care, which went away in 2007 for new hires as the industry was headed into a crisis. He also opened talks with requests for pay raise equal to 46% over 4 years, a 32-hour work week, and reinstatement of cost of living allowances. And he wants to end tiers of pay that give more tenured workers better compensation. Automakers estimate that granting Fain's entire wish list would drive up costs by $80 billion over 4 years, which most of that coming from pension costs and retiree health care. GM offered a 16% raise, and none of these retiree benefits Fain demanded. Ford made a similar proposal before that, and both were rejected. Stellantis offered a 14.5% pay raise to most union employees, and it was turned away. The workers wind up seeing strong wage gains with or without a strike. It will push up labor costs nationwide after a summer of impressive pay gains won by Teamsters at United Parcel Service, Inc. and pilots at American Airlines Group. Higher pay could also result from the ongoing strikes by Hollywood actors and writers. Of course, oh man, it's going to be really bad. It's going to make the inflation worse. It's going to worsen inflation. It's like, dude, they haven't gotten fucking pay raises for like the past 10 years. This is what's really frustrating, okay? Even in the absence of union activity, inflation is still happening. So maybe it's not fucking married to the concept of labor cost as much as these dipshits over at fucking Bloomberg are claiming it does. Okay? Same goes for fucking housing costs. Everyone's always like, man, inflation this, inflation that. It's like, maybe it's because minimum wage would really, really drive up, the cost of everything. It's like, bro, do you live in America? The minimum wage hasn't increased, and look at the fucking housing costs. Look at rent. It doesn't matter. Those increased wages will be coming from money that's already in circulation. Inflation does not go up because of that. Here's the issue. There is a way that you can meet these demands, and I say this all the fucking time. There is a way that you can meet all of these demands, okay? Every single one of them. You can meet these demands without driving up your costs. You know how? Take it from the shareholders. That's how. That's it. That's it. Take it from the fucking profits. Lower the profit margins. But you can't do that. People would rather fucking kill themselves than lower the goddamn profit margins. It's not just the cutting executive pay. Executives are an aberration, like a gross example of income distribution, okay? But executive pay isn't the only way. We're not talking about David Zaslav and his compensation structure that literally is more than like the WGA's demands, right? We're talking like executive pay is massive in this country, but like one executive's pay cutting down to $0 is not going to meet the demands of a fucking massive labor union like the UAW, okay? It's one way that you can actually eat away at some of that, but the reality is it needs to come at the cost of profits, okay? That's it. But isn't that against the fiduciary responsibility? Is it illegal for them to do that? No, it's not illegal for them to do that because you can directly point to the threat of a fucking union drive and the threat of a strike being significantly more costly for them. So you can literally turn around and say, hey, I avoided a massive fucking strike that was going to force us to, that was going to cause us to lose nearly $1 billion. And I did that at the cost of some of our profit margins. But here you can see in the long term, you end up making more. But these guys don't want to do that because obviously their job is to, their executive compensation is directly tied to how much they can fuck over the labor unions.
This isn't just for GM and
Okay, here, let's watch this video.
I think before it's never been so contentious, and I think that is probably the scariest part of all of this, that the sides seem very far apart. They don't seem like they are necessarily meeting, and it just seems very negative. So I think the next few days we're probably not going to see a lot of progress. I don't know if there's going to be that miracle 11th hour type of agreement that comes to it. It feels like, you know, strike is likely. I think the question is, where is the strike? Who is the strike going to be? Is it going to be the three that they have been threatening? Is it going to be one? I think that's sort of like the real question, at least in the short term.
Okay, so you do expect that strike to happen. Do you have a view on that question then? Kind of where are you leaning? Is it most likely to be across all three automakers? And what do you expect the disruption to be? How long could this strike go on? And how much disruption could we be talking about?
I wish I knew the answers to all those questions. I don't know if anybody does at this point. All three would be unprecedented. That's not something that generally happens. And I think that's why some of these talks have been categorized as contentious, because that is on the table. It's usually they pick one and that's where it goes. In 2019, it was General Motors. But now I think that there is, there's questions whether it'll be maybe not even at a car factory. If it's at a factory that supplies vehicles, that can really harm things. Because what we do know is that in the fourth quarter, these companies, they tend to sell a lot of their high profitable vehicles. So they're large pickup trucks, SUVs, all-wheel drive. If you were to cripple some of those factories that make those vehicles, the parts that go to those vehicles, that would be really detrimental, because that's when people want to buy these vehicles. There's a lot of pent-up demand for these vehicles. Would they do that? That would be that would be pretty aggressive.
I love talking about like labor unions. Okay. And being like, oh man, it's just like really contentious right now. It's just kind of like not it. There's a lot of pent up frustration.
But I don't know. Yeah,
Jessica, I've been reading a lot also about the knock-on effects in terms of suppliers and the risk of like suppliers going bankrupt if there is a strike. Well, what does the inventory situation look like between like suppliers and OEMs, and like what the filter down would be?
Yeah, and I think that's the difference right now, is that we've had such a roller coaster over the past few years. We're just getting not even past really the supply crisis with the microchips. I mean, right now inventory is, about 2 million units. Generally before the pandemic, it was about 3 to 4, probably closer to 4. We know that was too many vehicles, but right now there's probably, we're still at a point where it's maybe not quite enough in certain areas. So you start to hit suppliers and who are just recovering from a really hard past few years. And it's like this fragile chain can suddenly break again. And I think that's really what the scare is, because we're not thinking about doing this during a time where inventory has been bloated.
Yeah, famously, what you're supposed to do when you're a fucking labor union is wait to have less leverage. Like, I love talking about fucking January being the worst time to fucking, or Q4 being the worst time to make these kinds of contract negotiation bargaining, because like you have too much leverage. It's like, are you the fucking factory? Like, are you literally General Motors? Are you Mrs. General or Mrs. Motors? What the fuck are you saying? Yeah, of course that's when you're supposed to do it. Why the fuck would you bargain and threaten a strike when you have no chips in your fucking hand? I hate that. It's like, wow, it's going to be extra damaging that they're going to be doing this right before January when everybody fucking buys cars. It's like, yeah, no shit. Yeah, of course they're doing it now because they have the most power now. I don't get it. Like, what do you mean? Like, this is what you do. She's like she's an automobile journalist. You know what I mean? Blame the worker, not the greedy owners, executive shareholders, that framing. Yeah. Also, all three manufacturers at the same time, can't they do it one by one? Yeah, exactly. Like, the entire point of a strike is supposed to fucking strike fear in the hearts of capital owners, okay? It's not supposed to be goo goo gaga, let's sit around and fucking sing kumbaya shit. Like, that's the whole point. If you consider hitting profit margins to be a form of violence, then existing as a worker in a capitalist society is withstanding unimaginable amounts of structural violence every fucking day, okay? And you have no legal recourse. You have no way to fight back against it. Well, this is the one way you can fight back against it, unionize and engage in work stoppages, right? That's how you do it. Yeah, bro, come on. You don't have to say I can fix her every time you see a woman on stream.
Loaded for a long time. Sales have been running at 17 million units, so there's not a lot of pent-up demand. We're talking about a time in which literally we're still in a recovery mode. It's, further along in recovery, but recovery nonetheless.
You talked about the fact that there isn't a lot of pent-up demand. Talk to us, what is the demand outlook? Maybe if you put the strike to one side, how much demand is there from the US buyer in this environment, Jessica, of course, of higher rates, higher financing costs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is a lot of pent-up demand. We know people need to buy vehicles because the sales rate has been pretty low since the pandemic. Right now, in 2023, we're having the healthiest sales year since 2019 at this point in time. But consumers are dealing with higher prices as well as higher interest rates. Interest rates on new vehicles averaged 7.4% last month, and monthly payments hit an all-time high. So people are paying, on average, $738 for a new vehicle in the U.S. It's never been that high. Wow. Interest rates are usually not that high. You think about this and you're like, who is affording this? But people need to buy cars fundamentally in this country, and that's where the pent-up demand comes in. Used car market, that would be where people would turn to when prices are high. Prices are high there too, so you're not really getting a deal across the board. It's just the fact that some people have waited so long to buy a vehicle, you just can't wait forever. And since things don't look like they're going to 180 anytime soon, they're just jumping into the market.
It's wild how the framing
Stellantis
of
are
this
also
conversation on Bloomberg is pretty bad. I mean, is definitely worse than CNN.
Often these conversations with the UAW, and if you remember, just last week, the UAW filed a lawsuit against those two car companies saying that they weren't bargaining in good faith. Now, the latest there is we do
Well, they weren't bargaining at all. So, yeah, they were right to file that lawsuit.
expect that GM and the UAW are going to talk today. The union has said it does expect to get an offer from GM. Then for Stellantis, they are expected to present an offer by the end of this week. But time is running short. We are just a week out now from that contract expiration. Remember, the union itself has called some of what it is asking for audacious: 46% pay raises, 32-hour work week, other benefit related matters as well. And GM has been here before. In 2019, there was a 40-day strike of that automaker in particular that cost the company billions of dollars in EBITDA. So this is really go time here, John. 150,000 workers risking walking out of all three automakers at the same time if an agreement can't be made.
It is go time, Anne-Marie. What's the official line from this White House on this dispute?
They had to bring British guys to be like, yes, fuck these unions. It is go time. This reminds me of the time I tried to assassinate Mick Lynch, right? Who fucking hate him.
Well, you saw it out in the open yesterday, Jonathan. This White House wants to be seen as they are on the side of the unions, especially when they come out hailing the product of what happened between the dock workers in the Pacific and on the ports. But overshadowing that, of course, is this contentious contract debate between the UAW, as Kayleigh just outlined, and these big three auto workers. And it puts Biden in a really difficult place. We already know that there's an individual in the White House that has been working with this, Gene Sperling. He wanted someone to make sure they were involved in these negotiations. There's a lot of consternation within the White House. One, the president doesn't want to see a strike on his watch. What does that mean for the supply chain? What does that mean for the impact on the economy? But also, at the heart of these negotiations, Jonathan, is a pivotal industrial policy that this administration wants to see through. And that goes to electrifying the EV grid. And what you hear from the UAE workers is they want to know if they're not going to be left behind in this EV push. A lot of these battery plants are being developed in the south of America that usually doesn't have a pro-labor union way of working.
Dude, both the UAW and the Teamsters had incredible changes internally. Okay. And it's been for the better in really, really meaningful ways. I mean, yeah, the Capitol owners never saw Sean Fain coming. He was elected 6 months ago. First UAW president to be elected by rank and file. The previous two UAW presidents were charged for federal crimes for misusing union dollars. Sean is being super transparent with the rank and file with Fireside Chat on YouTube, and he wants to win back everything they've lost. Yeah. It's pretty wild. Like, incredible turnaround in an incredibly short period of time, too. Like, really, really, really sick. Ooh, Sean Fain is one of the most important people in the U.S. economy today. A year ago, almost no one knew who he was. New president of the United Auto Workers Union, sworn into the office less than 6 months ago, could lead strikes by 145,000 members of his union. For the record, that's why... Okay, guys, he's not that good. Like, you guys are being crazy. Like, this is weak-ass bait, dude. It's not good. I've been looking to see if there's like something that he says that's like actually, you know, interesting. Actually, even remotely interesting is not. But yeah, when you're talking about 145,000 working class union members, okay, taking that factory overseas. Like, one, it's an incredibly, immeasurably costly endeavor, okay? And two, the political backlash is unimaginable, dude. Unimaginable. Okay? For those of you, for the people who said, you know, what if they just, like, leave? What if they leave? What if they fucking go somewhere else? What if the companies go anywhere else? Yeah, capital flight, the USA is very hard. Yeah, capital flight within the United States has only occurred. Look, we are the consumer engine that is driving the global economy, okay? So much so that like even the American government, which is like allergic to giving any money to regular old workers, had to give cash infusions in the form of the Trump bucks, the stimmies during the pandemic, so that we could keep buying shit. Okay? Like, we love consuming. Okay? We love consuming. We will never stop consuming. The only time capital flight has occurred from the United States has happened at the behest of the federal government allowing it. Okay? That's why people fucking hate NAFTA. You understand? It's not like, because capital owners want it, and what is supposed to happen is the federal government is supposed to stop that. How do you stop that? Tariffs, punishments, sick the fucking IRS at them. You know what I mean? You have many different tools of crippling any fucking company that dare ship their manufacturing overseas. Okay? And when it has happened at the behest of neoliberal economists that work in every single administration, that is how the American economy has been crippled. Also, the jobs that were easy to take overseas were moved overseas in the 80s. The jobs that remain are jobs that capitalists can't move. Yes and no. Anyway. It's not that simple. Even if they could leave without repercussion, okay, bye. Now you have people who are willing to treat workers fairly. Why are we desperate to keep trash in the house? Let the trash take itself out. No, that's not true. Because we'll always buy that garbage. What are you talking about? How many fucking brands do you consume that, you know, have for many, many decades moved their manufacturing overseas? What are you talking about? That's not even a thing that is in consideration. Americans love buying garbage. It doesn't matter. They'll buy the garbage from Mexico that moved over to Mexico. They'll buy the garbage that is being made in China. Okay? The only way to stop or genuinely threaten those who threaten capital flight is tariffs, and just simply stating that we're just not going to allow your products into the country. Now, that would never happen. Anyone that would even mention that would probably get assassinated by like a CIA death squad or something, or a suicide by a bullet to the back of the head. 2-tap. Okay? But yeah, do what China does. Be like, oh yeah, dude, you want to move your fucking you want to move your manufacturing overseas? Bye. Have fun. You're not allowed into the American marketplace anymore. We will not let you sell your product here. If that was the case, then you have completely eliminated the motherfucking capital flight fear. But that is not even in question. People don't even think about it like that.